Hi, this is Dave LeMay. I'm a mentor with Team 247. Tonight what I'm going to be doing is going through the process of how to set up a project using Visual Studio Code and GitHub and get a code for a basic robot in there. I'm going to use the 2021 version of software. This project is going to assume that you're a member of Team 47, but there's only a couple of things that apply if you happen to be watching this from some other location, if you're part of some other team. All right. First, you have to have a GitHub account. And so I'm going to go through how to, once you have the GitHub account, how to use it to set up a code project. And I'm going to begin by signing in as a team member of 247. If you're not on 247, hold on just a minute, because most of this will all apply, and I'll point out the places where it doesn't. I have created a student sign-on called Dave's Evil Twin. So that I can create sign-ons that work the way a student account would. And so we're going to sign into GitHub using that account. And you see that I've already created a couple under Dave's Evil Twin. So we're going to create another one, just so I can show you how to do it. And the way we do this is under repositories. We're going to go there under programmers, because you should be a part of Team 247 programmers. If for people of other teams, I'll get to where it doesn't, what you guys would do instead. So under repositories, it will show all the repositories for Team 247. Okay, if you're not in Team 247, you are part of some organization somewhere, and you have a way of creating a new repository. The key is just create a new repository somewhere. It doesn't really matter where, as long as you can access it. Okay, and we're going to create a new repository. So you go up to this plus, do the drop down, new repository. Okay. And I'm going to call this repository Evil Twin 2. I've already created an Evil Twin. So, and this is just going to be a sample repository. It's going to be a public repository because, well, we have a free account. So we can only make public repositories, but we can still prevent people from doing anything to it. Okay, we're not going to do any of this down here, so we're just going to create public Evil Twin 2. This description is optional. The repository name can be anything you want. It'll be under your user ID, so this is now under Dave's Evil Twin 1031, and we're going to create repository. Okay, and it gives you this whole page, and what does all this mean? And it doesn't matter. You don't care. That's the key. But what you should do is take this and copy it. Now, for those of you not on Team 247, you do that same thing, because this is the only thing that we're going to know about under GitHub when we use the when we use Visual Studio Code to check it in, we need to know this URL. So I'm just going to save this by opening up Notepad and just Control V. So I'm just going to save, so because I'll need that later. Okay, there's one other thing that I'm going to do here, and this again is on Team 247, is I'm going to add my programmer sign-on to this as somebody who can read and write. So we'll go over to security. And let's see, where do I have to do this? No, that's not what I want. Settings. Here we go. Under Settings, Manage Access. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add someone, namely myself, using my normal sign-on instead of my evil twin sign-on. My normal sign-on is David L. LeMay. So we're going to add that as a collaborator, and I'll tell you why I do that in a minute. You don't. People on Team 247 should do that step. That way, at least on anything that you want to share with me, that way I can access your code easily, and I can give you tips on what's working, what's not working when we go to share code. These are for sample repositories. We will create a main repository during the season, but in this pre-season period, each person should have his own repository so that he or she can go and do things without requiring a lot of difficulty accessing it. I can get direct access if you give it to me. Okay, so that's all you have to do on this end. I'm going to end up seeing some of my mail here, but okay, I can live with that. Yep, I was looking at home gyms earlier, so I got home gym advertising. And Dave's evil twin has invited me, so that's great. So I'm going to view that invitation. Oh, right. There's actually a problem right now. I have to sign out here, because otherwise it's going to want Dave's evil twin. It's just a little bit too bright. I'm going to sign in as me, my primary sign-on. Okay, that way I'm actually going to, I'll do that. Go back to here, view invitation. Now I can accept the invitation because I'm signed in as me. We'll show you why I did that in a minute. Okay, so now we're done setting up the repository. There's nothing in it right now. That's okay. We don't want anything to be in it. Oh, and by the way, there's multiple ways to do almost anything in GitHub. I'm showing you one. There are other ways if you know it, how to, and prefer that way, use it. But I'm going to show you this one. I think it's the easiest and most straightforward of any of the ways to do things. It's the easiest to avoid mistakes. So now I'm going to start up VSCode. And I was doing things in VSCode earlier, so I'm going to start a new project. And to do that, I have another video on how to really do a new project. So this is a very quick how to set up a a brand new project, but I'm not going to go into any details about how to program it. I do have a video on what to do to program it. So I'm going to create a new project here. And this is something you should do every time you create a new project that you intend to be for use on a robot. You're going to select a type of project, and it's going to be template. We're going to select a language, and it's going to be Java. And the project base that we're going to use will be timed robot. We have always used timed robots. Some people really like command robots. Some people like other versions. Timed robot is what we've always used. And what I intend to use, unless somebody has a really good mastery of the process and knows how to use it, we're going to stick with timed robots. All right, so we're going to select a new project folder. What this allows you to do is create create a space for this project. So I'm going to put it in Evil Twin 2. So I'm going to select that folder. Okay. And the project name is going to be Evil Twin 2. You don't have to keep all these consistent, everything, but it sure is much easier if you do. You won't get confused. Use a new name and keep it all consistent. We are on team 247, so we enter our team number there. Otherwise, we won't be able to communicate with the robot. We're not going to enable desktop support, although we could, but we're not going to. All right? Because we don't generally use it, and it can make things go wrong. So now we're going to generate the project. Project is successfully created. Let's open the folder. And we'll do that in the current window. That'll take the current project off of the current window. So that way we won't be cluttered up with anything. Okay. So now, this is it. This is the skeleton of the robot. I'm not going to do much here. I'm just going to add a comment here. Just so that I can show that we can. This is the code for Evil Twin 2. Okay? And the source control, now what we have to do is we have to associate this project that's sitting here on my computer that nobody knows about, and we have to associate it with the project I just created on GitHub. So how are we going to do that? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to click on this source control icon. This is the source control icon. That gives us access to all of our source control. Right now, the project we created was created as a project for VSCode, but we didn't tell it that this is a VSCode repository for use with GitHub. A repository is what GitHub calls its project folders. So we're going to initialize the project folder. Okay. And we had an option to directly publish it, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to do the slightly longer way so that I can show you what's happening behind the scenes. What we have to do is use GitHub commands to associate this project on VS Code on our local computer with the project that we created in GitHub. Okay? So I'm going to open up a new terminal. From the terminal, we can run all sorts of Git commands. You never have to use this, but I'm going to show you how to do it this way for the very first setup, and I'll show you why in a moment. Okay, so from here, it starts out in our project folder. which is great. That's just where we want it. And I'm going to say git push. No, I'm not. I'm also not going to edit this video, so you'll have to suffer through some of my changes of minds. So we've got code. We want to get it up into the repository. We haven't associated it with the repository yet, but we're going to take some steps to get there. Okay, what are we going to do first? Well, first, we have to get the changes saved, and not just saved, but saved within source control. To save it, we could save like this. In fact, we probably should, but we're not going to. Instead, I'm going to build it, because build saves it automatically. And so to do that, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to build robot code. And so it's going to execute the build, and eventually you'll see build successful. No matter what you do over here, you're going to see build successful. So for example, if you say deploy robot code, it'll say build successful. That means whatever you were trying to do, it worked. All right, so now we built the robot code, everything's saved. And if we check this, we can check for changes. We can see what changed. Well, we have a lot of things that changed because we created a new project. So what we want to do to get it to the repository is we have to go through a 3-step process. This is true for every Git operation. You have 3 steps that you have to perform. The first step is called staging. Staging is tell the computer, and specifically the Git program, that what you want to do is save these changes. And oh, it staged them for us. That's interesting. Really? Once again, I haven't edited this video. You can tell from here which are unstaged, so it staged all of them for us. I'm just going to make sure discard all changes, stage all changes. Yeah. Stage all changes means everything that's changed, put it in. So now we have 15 staged changes. We've identified, I can unstage something. Let's do that. I can unstage a change. The reason I wanted to do that is because you have staged changes and unstaged changes that are just identified as changes. It says, see, look, here's a change that hasn't been staged. If you don't stage it, it will not be saved to the repository. So we're going to save all changes. And now, once again, we're back to 15 staged changes. All right, so far so good? Good. The next thing we have to do is take everything that we have staged and commit those changes. Commit means mark them all together as one group that you're going to save to the upstream repository. So we're saying, I want to take all these changes, which is basically all my new files, and I want all of them to end up in the repository. So what do? Well, I commit. Commit takes everything that's staged and turns it into what we call a commit. And that's a group of files that have changed. And they all change together. And once you commit them, they'll all be tracked as a group. So you know that all these changes were made at the same time. So I'm going to commit. And you notice there's a place over here for a message. And there's this box pops up that says message. Every time you commit something, you have to include a reason for the commit. You have to include a commit message. That's part of the rules. It can't be blank. Oh, darn it. I don't know if I just committed or not. I think I did. Oh, you didn't see that. I accidentally hit the Enter key on my keyboard. Okay. Well, there we are. I guess it can be blank because I think it just did it. All right, now what we're going to do. So that's how we stage and we commit. You could also do those from the command line. Remember the command line? Oh, we've erased it. Oh, we did something over here. So, yeah, okay. I just hit Enter to get it back to here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type Git. That says use the Git program to do something. And the thing I want to do is push. After you have committed, you have a commit, and you can commit several times. You can commit several different chunks of code. You can have all sorts of things going on with commits. Whatever number of commits you've done, you can push them. So now we're going to say git push. Okay, here's why I did the command line. Because it doesn't know where to push it. You said what push means is take my code and put it on the repository. But it doesn't know what the repository is. But what it did is tell you that it didn't know. See, no configured push destination. It hasn't gotten a destination for a push. So you can do this. Git remote add name, whatever name you want, and URL. URL is the thing we saved earlier. It's where it's located on GitHub. And then you can push it using the name. Well, you can use whatever name you want, but let's keep everything consistent and use the name EvilTwin2. Git remote. The repository on GitHub is called a remote. You have a repository that is local, which we created on our machine that no one else in the world knows about. And there's a repository up in GitHub that doesn't have any code in it yet. So we're going to merge those two together. We're going to associate them, and that's what it does. We're going to say git remote add a remote to this project. We're going to call it EvilTwin2. And then we saved the URL. This is the URL that its location on GitHub. So we're going to copy that and then paste it here. Okay. You can do that with Control V, depending on what computer you're on. A right mouse click might do it, whatever. So what we're saying here is add the URL, this thing, as a remote and call it EvilTwin2. And no bad words came up, so looks like that probably worked. And now we're going to git push EvilTwin2. But there's another thing we have to do. This is a little more complicated to explain. Git works with branches. The main branch is always called master. In order to actually use the features of source control, a branch on your local machine has to be associated with a branch on the target machine. We call that tracking branches. And the upstream branch, namely the one on the server, has to be associated with this current downstream branch, the one that's on our local machine. So we have a master branch here because the first one you create is always master. By the way, we might get to using branches. Branches are harder. But know that you always have one branch called master. And so we have to say that this master ought to be synced up with that master. And fortunately, Git has even told us how to do that. So if we just copy this, come on. To there, it all works. There's a bunch of stuff. It looks like it wrote. We're all good. And here we are. And if I go up here and see this is David L. LeMay, great. I'm going to refresh this. Oh, look, Evil Twin 2. There it is. And now it's got code in it. I can even find, oh, look at this. 6 minutes ago, somebody created it. And I can even look at robot.java. Oh, here it is. And this is the code for Evil Twin 2. That's the change I made to it. Everything's fine. Now it's in GitHub. Now I can use it, David L. LeMay, and you can use it because you created it. In this case, in this video, it was created by Evil Twin, but when you create it under your username. Everything will be fine. Oh, I did want to say, why did I add David L. LeMay to it? Because one of the things you have to do that I did not go over is you have to associate your username to VS Code. And I didn't go over that in this video. I will work with you on that. It has to know your GitHub username when you configure source control to know who you are and how to log in. Otherwise, you can probably do it by logging in and entering your password, but you'll want to set up your identity so that you don't have to do that every time. And here I am. I'm logged in as David L. LeMay. So you'll have to do that. All right. That's it. That's the process. And we'll try to make it work. If it doesn't work, and it usually doesn't, there's usually something that goes wrong. If something goes wrong, we'll work on it in the build room. Thanks, everyone.